Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you own a physical storefront, you're inevitably going to face one massive fundamental challenge: deciding exactly how to properly secure your storefront opening at the end of the day. It sounds like a pretty simple purchase, right? Just buy a metal gate. But the reality is that choosing the wrong security installation can lead to some massive vulnerabilities, wasted budget, or a system that actually fights against the daily needs of your business. So today, we're going to look at a highly structured approach to how gates secure storefront openings to make absolutely sure you get this right the first time. And hey, the insights we're unpacking today, they aren't just some textbook theory. We are drawing directly from the real-world playbook of Jessie Bajwa, a professional installer with 9 solid years of expertise in storefront security. By breaking down his exact diagnostic framework, we're getting an honest, unfiltered look at how a pro actually walks an owner through this crucial choice. Okay, let's dive right into our agenda for this explainer. First, we'll look at the storefront security challenge, then break down the accordion gate barrier, followed by the roll-down shutter enclosure. After that, we'll cover 3 questions to help you decide. And finally, how to avoid some really costly mistakes.
Section 1. The Storefront Security Challenge. Understanding the physical vulnerability of your space.
Now, while roll-down shutters totally dominate the conversation around securing storefront openings, they actually aren't the only option out there. And honestly, they're not always the right option either. You really have to understand what you need your security gate to do before you pull out your credit card. We're looking at a fundamental difference here between a barrier and an enclosure. Think of a barrier, like an accordion gate, as something that covers the opening but doesn't fully seal it. You can see right through it, air flows through, and anyone on the sidewalk can see exactly what's inside. An enclosure, on the other hand, like a roll-down shutter, completely seals the opening. It blocks all visibility, physically shutting off the space. It's a totally different ballgame, both psychologically and physically. Moving on to Section 2, the accordion gate barrier, the unsung hero of industrial spaces. So what exactly is it? Well, an accordion gate is essentially defined by its mechanics. It's a folding metal gate with an open lattice design. Picture a row of vertical metal pickets hooked together with crossing diagonals. Kind of like those vintage elevator doors. During the day, the whole thing just folds back neatly against one side of the opening. But at night, you pull it horizontally across the gap and lock it on the opposite side. The real kicker here is that open lattice. It gives you a legitimate physical barrier without having to build a solid metal wall. Now, you might be wondering, where does this specific design actually win out? There are 4 precise scenarios where it absolutely shines. First up, incredibly wide openings. We're talking massive spaces, sometimes up to 100 feet on a single run. Second, it's perfect for budget-constrained projects, since the materials are simpler, the install is faster, and there's no pricey motor involved. Third, think interior security partitions, like locking up a tenant space inside a mall where the building itself provides the primary perimeter security. And fourth, industrial and warehouse loading bays. If you need to secure an equipment cage or a loading dock, the accordion gate is literally the industry standard. Section 3, the roll-down shutter enclosure, the dominant player in retail security. This completely changes the dynamic of a storefront. Unlike the side-to-side pull of the accordion gate, a roll-down shutter moves vertically. It uses solid, continuous metal slats that roll straight down from a housing unit up top. When this thing comes down, it is sealed tight. No lattice, 0 visibility. It drops a solid metal wall right between your business and the street outside. And here is where the roll-down shutter absolutely dominates. First and foremost, it creates a perfectly solid storefront enclosure. For businesses like liquor stores or dispensaries, where your inventory is sitting right there, visible to the street, blocking that view completely changes what an attacker has to think about. Out of sight, out of mind, right? Second, it serves as a massive visible deterrent in high crime or heavy foot traffic areas. It basically screams from a block away that your shop is hardened. Third, you get full motorization. You can control it with a wall switch, a phone app, or a key fob. And finally, a properly installed shutter will give you decades of reliable service life on its solid structure. Which brings us to Section 4, 3 questions to decide. The installer's diagnostic framework. So how on earth do you actually choose between these two? Well, here is the actual mental flowchart an installer uses. Question number 1 is purely physical. How wide is the opening? Everything else relies on this single metric. Here's the rule of thumb. If your opening spans more than 20 feet wide, an accordion gate absolutely has to get serious consideration. Why? Because the housing and the motor you'd need to safely pull a heavy roll-down shutter across a gap that big start to get extremely expensive, very fast. And if your opening is over 40 feet wide, honestly, at that point, an accordion gate is usually the only practical product that will physically and economically fit the space. Okay, but what if width isn't the deciding factor? Then we move to question 2. Does the storefront have visible inventory at night? This forces you to think about what a potential intruder actually sees from the sidewalk when you are closed. If the answer is yes, if you got high-value goods sitting right there behind the glass, you absolutely need the solid enclosure of a roll-down shutter. You want to completely remove that temptation. But if the answer is no, like an industrial loading dock or a warehouse bay where there's nothing tempting out in plain sight, the open lattice of an accordion gate is perfectly sufficient, and it keeps your costs down. Finally, question 3 is all about the day-to-day operation of the gate. Does the installation need motorization? How do you actually picture your staff opening and closing this thing every single day? If you're looking to just push a button, use a key fob, or tap a phone app to secure your building, then boom, your answer is immediately the roll-down shutter. Accordion gates are strictly manual products. They simply do not motorize. But if you don't mind a manual horizontal pull, then the accordion gate remains a fantastic option. You know, what's genuinely fascinating about this framework is how perfectly it maps to real-world service calls. Looking at the data, a retail or liquor store has visible inventory, so it demands a roll-down shutter. A warehouse loading dock has zero visible storefront inventory, making the accordion gate a total slam dunk. And an interior mall partition, well, it's protected by the mall's exterior shell, so again, perfectly suited for the accordion gate. It is incredibly consistent. Let's wrap things up with Section 5, Avoiding Costly Mistakes, where owners get it wrong. Even with a super clear framework, buyers still fall into some pretty painful traps, usually by trying to save a buck or by over-securing their space. The classic retail mistake is a store owner buying an accordion gate simply because it's cheaper, but they completely lose that massive visual deterrent. Because people can still see inside, the storefront glass still gets tested by intruders. Owners almost always regret this and end up having to shell out for a costly shutter retrofit later on. On the flip side, you have the warehouse mistake. This is when an owner buys a roll-down shutter for a massive, wide industrial bay. They drastically overpay for a gigantic motor and housing, burning through their budget for a threat profile that just didn't require a solid metal wall in the first place. So, let's turn this into an actionable checklist. If you are preparing to call an installer right now, take these 3 steps first. Number 1, measure the opening. Get the exact width and height, because those physical numbers drive the conversation way more than your preference will. 2, describe exactly what is sitting behind that opening. Is it visible retail inventory, empty warehouse stock, an office? And 3, name your primary priority right up front. Tell the installer if your main goal is staying under budget, maximizing longevity, creating a huge visual deterrent, or having full motorization. Knowing this instantly shortens the conversation and makes sure you get the right product. Which leaves us with this final thought for you to ponder. When you secure your space, are you simply investing in a metal barrier to cover a hole? Or are you investing in the right psychological visual signal for your specific storefront? Choosing between an accordion gate and a roll-down shutter isn't just about the metal itself. It's about perfectly matching the tool to the specific vulnerability of your building. Think very carefully about what message your storefront sends when the lights go out. Thank you for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.